Hello, Bobby Torres of Frightbox, recording here to share with you my approach to achieving wider, heavy guitar tones within a mix. Now, if you're after wider, heavy guitar tones within your productions, you're gonna love what I have in store for you. Now, throughout the years of mixing heavy music, I found that the best way to achieve wide guitar sounds is to do it naturally. And what I mean by doing it naturally is not having to rely on stereo wideners or any other fancy trickery within the mix. And the way to achieve extra width naturally is to change some variable between your left and right guitar track. And you can do this in a number of ways. You can maybe use a different guitar between your left and right guitar tracks. The subtle variations in intonation between two different guitars can help add width to your overall guitar sound. If you're using live amps, you can maybe use one head on one side and another head on the other side. The variation in tone can maybe be subtle or not so subtle, depending on what you're after. This also can help add width. You can maybe use a different cab on the left side and another cab on the right side. But me personally, my all-time favorite approach for adding extra width to a guitar sound is to change up the mic placement on your left and right guitar tracks. Now, even if you're using the same guitar player, same head, same cab on both your left and right channels, you're gonna end up with a very wide sound if you end up varying the mic placement between your left and right guitar tracks. So right here is a picture of my favorite Mesa Boogie cab out of my studio, and as you could tell, I have two microphones on the cab. Now, if I feel like adding extra width in the mix, I'll end up using the 157 for the one guitar track and the other 57 for the other. Now, I don't always do this. I only do this if I feel like adding extra width to my guitar sound. Okay, well, that's all fine and dandy if you're using live amps. But what happens if you're using an amp sim? Well, I have good news for you. You can apply the same exact concept when using an amp sim. And you could do so by using the same exact amp sim, but with a different impulse response loaded on your left and right channels. Now, what I've done is I've gone ahead and taken impulse responses of my favorite Mesa Boogie cab in my studio and created a dual impulse response pack. In this upcoming tutorial, I'll be using these two impulse responses to demonstrate just how wide you can get a guitar sound. Now, you can download the dual impulse response pack that I'll be using in the tutorial for absolutely free. There's a link below right within this video's description. So with all that being said, let's get to work. Okay, so here we are at my DAW. I have two DI tracks, one for my left guitar and one for my right guitar. And for both guitar tracks, I'm using the exact same plugin, the TSE Audio X50. The channels themselves do not have any EQ on them, and they are both being fed to a guitar submix. And on my guitar submix, I have a little bit of multi-band compression just to control the palm mutes and a touch of EQ. So as you can see, this is an ultra simple guitar chain. Not much happening as far as mixing is concerned, just a touch of EQ and a little bit of compression. So with all that being said, let's listen to the sample and see what we have. Okay, so in my opinion, that's a pretty wide guitar tone, and there's no fancy trickery happening as far as mixing is concerned. And the way I'm accomplishing this wide guitar tone is I have impulse response A of my first V30 in my favorite Mesa Boogie cab on my left guitar track loaded, and I have impulse response B, which is an impulse response of my second V30 in my favorite Mesa Boogie cab, loaded on my right guitar track. Now again, I'm using the exact same settings as far as tone is concerned. The amps are set exactly the same. Both guitar tracks are EQ'd exactly the same since they're both being EQ'd on the bus. The only variable that's changed is the mic placement, or in this case, the impulse response. Because remember, all an impulse response is a snapshot of a particular cab and a particular mic placement on that cab. And if you look at this graph right here, even when I switch to the other impulse response, there's a subtle variation. So the subtle variation between my left guitar and my right guitar is what creates this nice natural wide guitar tone. So just to showcase how effective this technique is, I'm gonna load up V30A on both sides and let's hear how it sounds. Okay, not bad. It still sounds like a great guitar tone, but just not as wide. So now let's go with V30B on both guitars. Let's check that out. Okay, again, totally usable. Sounds like a nice, solid, heavy guitar tone, but not as wide as having two different impulse responses loaded, one on each side. So now let's go back to having V30A on the left. And let's just make sure we have V30B on the right. And let's hear how this sounds. So if you notice, when I intermittently switched the right guitar sound back to V30A, it slightly narrowed my guitar tone. Now I also want to quickly mention I have a bunch of impulse responses on my left column here, but these are being bypassed. They are not enabled. The only impulse responses being used in this video are my own custom impulse responses, which you could download for absolutely free. There's a link below right within this video's description. So as you can tell, this is super simple. You could achieve this same exact effect if you were recording live amps just by varying up the mic placement on your left and right guitar tracks. Now, I don't use this in every single production. I only utilize this if I want a super duper wide guitar tone, because me personally, I am not a fan of stereo wideners. It's not that you can't get great results with them. It's just that when it comes to stereo widening, there's weird stuff that happens with phase, and sometimes things can get weird when your mix is played back in mono. So me personally, I prefer to achieve this effect right at the source, and using a slightly different impulse response on each side is a great way to do it. Again, because you can use the same guitar, the same exact amp sim, the same everything. All you have to vary are the impulse responses. Okay, once more, let's hear the final result. And there you have it, a nice wide guitar sound done the natural way. If you found this video helpful, like, comment, subscribe, and share. And do not forget to click the little bell icon in order to be notified every time I upload one of my weekly videos on all things metal and rock production. You can both like and follow me on Facebook and Instagram. Links are in the description below. And be sure to download my dual impulse response pack for absolutely free. There's a link below right within this video's description. Till next time, happy mixing.